Welcome to another deep dive. We asked for your first-hand accounts of the dark web.
And wow, did you deliver.
Some truly captivating stories.
It's amazing what people have experienced in this hidden corner of the internet.
Yeah, and it's not all just rumors or hearsay either.
Right, we're talking about real personal experiences.
Laid bare for us in this YouTube video transcript.
So let's dive right in.
One thing that really stood out to me was how...
Accessible?
Yeah, exactly. Especially for young people, it seems like they can just stumble onto it.
It's not some impenetrable digital fortress anymore, right?
They're not at all.
Like it used to be.
I mean...
It used to require some serious technical know-how. But now it's just a few clicks away for anybody.
A few clicks, a secondhand laptop.
And that readily available list of URLs. Remember that story?
Yeah, high school friends.
Chang!
Seriously, like it makes you wonder about the level of awareness out there. I mean, in school, they talk about cyberbullying,
Right.
social media safety, all that.
Sure.
But do they ever even address the dark web?
Huge information gap there.
Yeah.
It's like warning kids about the dangers of swimming pools,
Yeah.
but never mentioning the ocean.
Okay, so we know it's easy to access.
Way easier than it used to be.
But why? What is it about the dark web that draws people in? Is it just morbid curiosity?
Curiosity is definitely a factor,
Okay.
especially for those looking for the unusual or the taboo,
Right.
like those teenagers looking to buy urine for drug tests.
Oh, right. That story.
It all started with a pretty simple need, right?
Be it a little unusual.
A little unusual, but for there, it was straight down the rabbit hole into some pretty dark corners of the web.
So it can start innocently enough.
Seemingly innocuous, but that's how they get...
It highlights how easily we can be drawn in.
Exactly.
Just that desire to see things we wouldn't normally encounter.
Not just shock value, though.
No.
There's a whole psychological element at play here.
Oh, okay.
This fascination with the forbidden.
Like a digital Pandora's box.
Ooh, I like that.
Once it's open, who knows what you'll find.
Speaking of which, what about those dark web marketplaces?
Ooh, yeah, let's talk about
The
those.
Silk Road stories were fascinating.
Silk Road, eh? A classic.
It was a landmark in the evolution of the dark web.
How so?
This vast online bazaar
Yeah.
operating with this illusion of legitimacy.
Interesting.
What's remarkable is how much it mirrored traditional e-commerce sites.
Really?
Escrow systems, vendor ratings,
Wow.
even forums for dispute resolution.
It's like they were trying to build a shadow version of Amazon or eBay or something,
In a way, yeah, a parallel economy,
but all under this veil of normalcy.
which made it even more dangerous.
You're right.
Remember that story about the guy who got scammed buying mushrooms?
Oh, yeah.
Stark reminder that trust on the dark web is a fragile thing.
That brings us to a big question then. How do you regulate a marketplace that thrives on anonymity?
$1 million question, right?
It feels impossible.
It's incredibly difficult to track down individuals and hold them accountable. Law enforcement faces a constant uphill battle against these decentralized and often encrypted networks,
Cat and mouse game then.
with technology constantly evolving on both sides.
But it's not just about illegal goods and services though, right?
No, you
Some of these stories go beyond that.
deeper.
Yeah, genuinely unsettling encounters that blur the lines between what's virtual and what's real.
You get this pervasive sense of unease in these accounts,
Hmm.
a fear of the unknown that permeates the dark web.
Okay, I see what you mean.
That story about the blue bubble appearing on the user's monitor after visiting certain sites
Oh, yeah, creepy.
plays on our deepest anxieties about surveillance and the possibility of being watched.
Even in the supposed anonymity of the dark web.
Even there, yeah.
But who's behind it? What are they doing?
Exactly.
Is it even real or just a hoax?
It's like a digital ghost story whispered from screen to screen.
I like that.
That's the unsettling truth about the dark web, a breeding ground for both real dangers and manufactured fears.
And it's tough to tell them apart.
Almost impossible sometimes.
Yeah, it really is like the dark web is playing mind games,
Messing with your head.
blurring the lines between what's real and what's not.
Right.
But even if some of these surveillance stories are just exaggerated,
Uh-huh.
they tap into a very real fear
Mm-hmm.
that our digital lives are never truly private.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that vulnerability can be amplified on the dark web,
Right?
where anonymity feels like a double-edged sword.
Yeah, how so?
It can empower individuals to express themselves freely, maybe seek help discreetly,
Right.
but it also provides cover for those with bad intentions.
We see that duality play out in that story about the hit.
Oh, yeah, that one.
ordering a hit on themselves.
Whoa!
A chilling example of how the dark web can distort reality.
Especially when you add in things like substance abuse or mental health issues.
It makes you wonder,
Yeah.
what really stood out to me about that story was how the dark web can amplify.
Existing psychological vulnerabilities.
Exactly.
It doesn't necessarily create these problems, right? But it can make them so much worse.
Push people down dangerous paths.
It's less about creating monsters and more about giving existing demons a playground.
Okay, I get it.
A sense of detachment from the real world, where consequences seem less real, less tangible.
Right?
But the actions we take online, even in the shadowy corners of the internet,
Yeah.
they have real-world consequences.
That's a scary thought.
The internet never forgets,
And on the dark web,
especially there.
that's a whole other level.
But, speaking of consequences,
Yeah.
another fascinating thing is how the dark web grapples with issues of trust and accountability.
It's interesting, right?
Paradoxical, really.
How so?
Anonymity is paramount on the dark web. But at the same time, marketplaces and forums need some kind of trust to function.
Makes sense.
It's a breeding ground for scams.
Like that story about the guy who bought mushrooms on Silk Road and got ripped off.
Exactly. Classic example.
But it also forces users to create their own unique systems of accountability.
Wild west of the internet. You got to be savvy.
Resourceful, rely on your gut.
And that's where reputation comes in.
Right?
Remember how that same guy ended up getting his money back?
Oh, yeah. How'd that happen again?
Another user who had been cheated by the same seller stepped in.
Wow.
Community-driven justice.
The dark web policing itself.
Right.
So even in the space where anonymity reigns supreme, there's this sense of community,
Shared values.
a desire for fairness.
Almost poetic in a way.
It is kind of.
This organic emergence of order from chaos.
It's fragile, right?
Oh, incredibly fragile.
Constantly on the verge of collapse.
Which brings us back to that question.
Can the dark web truly police itself?
No easy answers there.
Not at all.
But you know what I find most compelling about these stories?
What's that?
How they show that deep-seated human need for connection, for community,
Okay, yeah.
even in the darkest corners of the digital world.
We see it in the marketplaces,
Wow.
the forums, and chat rooms.
People gather to share information, seek support.
Or just connect with like-minded souls.
You said it.
You're right, these stories aren't just about crime.
No, not at all.
They also reveal this human desire for belonging, for finding a place to be yourself.
Even if that self is hidden behind a digital mask.
Right, exactly. It's like the dark web allows you to explore,
Separate facets of your identity.
shed those constraints of the real world.
Experiment with different personas.
It can be liberating,
Absolutely.
but also dangerous.
Oh, for sure.
It's like it's a space where individuals can connect with others who share their interests.
Their values, maybe even their darkest secrets.
And in some cases, that can lead to real support and understanding,
But it can also lead to echo chambers,
where harmful ideas take root.
and individuals become radicalized.
We see that happen in that story about the bullied teenager.
Oh, yeah, the one who turned to the dark web for revenge.
It's heartbreaking
It really is.
how the dark web can exploit vulnerability and incite violence,
The anonymity can embolden people.
make them act on impulses they might normally suppress.
It creates a detachment from the real world.
Like a false sense of security.
That can have tragic consequences.
It's like the dark web is this warped mirror reflecting back at us.
Showing us the good and bad.
Yeah, all the complexities of being human.
It forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths about anonymity,
Power.
the consequences of our actions.
You know, you're right.
We can't forget that.
These stories are a reminder that the digital world isn't separate from us.
Nope.
It's an extension of ourselves.
A reflection of our collective consciousness.
And the choices we make online.
The paths we choose.
They have a ripple effect.
They really do.
That extends far beyond our screens.
It's not just about protecting ourselves from the dangers of the dark web.
Right.
It's about understanding its complexities
Nuances.
and its impact on individuals and society as a whole.
We have to recognize that the dark web isn't just about shadows and secrets. It's a reflection of ourselves.
Our hopes, our flaws, our shared humanity.
You put it perfectly. These stories challenge us to look beyond those sensational headlines,
To see the dark web as a microcosm of the human experience,
where our hopes and fears collide.
creating something both disturbing and strangely alluring.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like we're looking through this digital looking glass and we see the beauty and the ugliness of what it means to be human.
And that's what makes these dark web stories so fascinating, right? They force us to ask these tough questions about ourselves.
About the choices we make, the world we create online.
These narratives really challenge us,
Yeah.
to examine our own moral compasses,
Right.
to think about how we deal with these ethical
It's
dilemmas.
not easy.
No, not at all. Would we be tempted by the allure of anonymity,
Hmm.
or would we stick to our values, even when faced with temptation?
It's interesting because a lot of these stories, they're not all doom and gloom.
Right.
There's also this remarkable resilience,
Mm,
even glimmers of hope,
I see what you mean.
like those who vow to never go back to the dark web after what they experienced.
Yeah. It's like they stared into the abyss and came back with a newfound appreciation for the light.
They confronted their fears and came out stronger on the other side,
Exactly, like they went through a digital crucible or something.
emerging stronger, more self-aware.
Makes you wonder if the dark web, for all its dangers,
Yeah.
can also be a catalyst for self-discovery.
That's interesting.
Maybe it's where we confront our shadow selves, the parts of ourselves we'd rather keep hidden.
It speaks to that inherent duality of the dark web,
Uh,
where both our darkest impulses and our deepest desires can be expressed.
Ultimately, it's our choice, though.
It is.
Which path we take online and offline.
These stories remind us that the internet is a reflection of our choices, our values, our actions.
It's not some lawless frontier.
Not at all.
We have this responsibility to shape the digital world we're creating.
Absolutely. It starts with awareness.
Education, understanding the risks.
And the opportunities too, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And not just the surface web, but the hidden corners as well.
We need to foster critical thinking.
Encourage people to question what they see online
Be more discerning with information.
and to think about the consequences of their actions.
It's also about promoting empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
Remember, behind every screen, every username,
Every transaction,
there's a person with their own story.
their own motivations, their own vulnerabilities.
Exactly.
It's easy to get caught up in the sensationalism of it all, to see the dark web as this place of pure evil.
But these stories show us it's more complex than that,
It's a reflection of our collective humanity.
with all its flaws and contradictions.
And that's why it's so important to talk about it.
Have open and honest conversations.
Demystify it, understand its allure and its dangers.
Explore how it impacts us all.
You've given us a lot to think about today.
It's been a great discussion.
And I'm sure these conversations will keep going even after this deep dive is over.
These stories really stick with you,
They do.
challenging our assumptions, sparking our curiosity.
Making us realize that the digital world is an integral part of who we are.
It's not separate from us at all.
So as we move forward into this digital age,
Yeah.
let's do it with wisdom and compassion.
Keeping in mind the choices we make and how they impact others.
It's about finding that balance.
And remembering that even in the darkest corners of the internet,
There's still hope, connection, and a chance for redemption.
that's a good note to end on.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the dark web.
It's been a pleasure.
Until next time, stay curious, stay safe.
And keep exploring.